Section 7.1 is on ratios and proportions. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. And we can write that in several different ways. We can write it as 1/4, 1 over 4, 1 to 4, using a colon, or actually put the word 2 in there, so 1 to 4. Most frequently, though, it's written as a fraction. Let's take a look at an example here that uses a ratio. At a certain high school, there are 190 teachers and 2,650 students. What is the student-teacher ratio? In other words, for how many students are there for each teacher? So I need a ratio of students to teachers. So there are 2,650 students and 190 teachers. So basically, to figure out how many students there are for each single teacher, in other words, have a 1 in the denominator, I would just do this division in my calculator, and it comes out to be 13.9473, and kind of keeps going on for a while, which is approximately 14, which means that the ratio is about 14 to 1. And in student-teacher ratios, this is the way they usually write it. There's one teacher for every 14 students at this school. Let's take a look at some geometry examples here. The ratio of the measures of the angles of a triangle is 2 to 6 to 10. Find the measure of each angle. So in other words, in a triangle, one angle would be 2 times some number. The other angle would be 6 times that same number. And the third angle would be 10 times that same number. So we're going to let kind of that common difference there between them be called x. So I would say 2x plus 6x plus 10x equals 180, because all of the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So when I'm talking about the ratio of the angles, I would multiply whatever those numbers are in the ratio by x. Okay, and solving that, that's going to give me 18x equals 180, or x is equal to 10. Okay, so 10 is that number that I would multiply by 2, 6, and 10 to get each angle. So one angle, 2 times x, is going to be 20. Another angle, which is 6 times x, is going to be 60. And the last angle, 10 times x, is 100. So the three angles are 20, 60, and 100, and those do indeed add up to 180. Here's another similar example, the ratio of the measures of the sides of a triangle. And I do want to make a distinction here that this is the sides of a triangle, not the angles. So the ratio of the measures of the sides of a triangle is 2 to 2 to 3. If its perimeter is 392 inches, find the length of the longest side. Okay, another thing is, remember that perimeter is the length of all of the sides added together. What is the distance around that triangle? So we're going to set it up in the same way. Since the ratio is 2 to 2 to 3, we're going to multiply each one of those by x. So 2x plus 2x plus 3x does not equal 180, because remember, these are sides. These are not angles. The sides add up to the perimeter, which is 392. So that's 7x equals 392, and dividing, x is equal to 56. Now we're not done, because the problem said to find the length of the longest side. The longest side is going to be the one that's in the ratio with the 3. So 3 times 56, which is x, is going to give me 168 inches. So the longest side of that triangle is 168. And notice, 2 of the sides are going to be the same length, because they both have a 2 in the ratio here. So this is actually going to be an isosceles triangle. 2 of the sides will be, what does that come out to be, 112? And then the third side is 168. Now a proportion is just an equation that states that two ratios are equal to each other. So for example, 3/4 equals 6/8 is a proportion. This ratio is equal to this ratio, and a proportion is always going to have an equal sign in between there. To solve a proportion, and you may remember this from algebra, hold on just a second, let me make this a little thicker here. To solve a proportion, we use cross products. So in other words, A times D is equal to B times C. And remember, because we're dealing with fractions here, B and D cannot equal 0 because you can't have a 0 in the denominator of a fraction. So let's do an example here. Let's solve this proportion. 3x minus 6 over 2 is equal to 4x minus 2 over 4. So let's do the cross products. These two guys multiplied are going to be equal to these two guys multiplied. So 4 times 3x minus 6 is equal to 2 times 4x minus 2, or 12x minus 24 equals 8x minus 4. 4x equals 20, or x is equal to 5. And remember, when it says solve the proportion, solving in this case means just finding the value of x that makes it true. So the solution of this problem is x equals 5. And our last example is going to use a problem from the textbook that's actually a word problem. Ella is baking apple muffins for the Student Council bake sale. The recipe that she is using calls for 2 eggs per dozen muffins. So for every 1 dozen muffins, for every 12 muffins, you need 2 eggs. She needs to bake 108 muffins. How many eggs is she going to need? So we're going to set up a ratio and then write it as a proportion. I need to know how many eggs per muffins. Okay? And her recipe calls for 2 eggs for every 1 dozen muffins. And since they're using dozen there, but then just total number of muffins here, I'm just going to write that as 12 muffins, because there's 12 in 1 dozen. So she needs 2 eggs for 12 muffins, and it says how many eggs is she going to need, so I'm going to call that x, eggs for 108 muffins. Okay. And again, doing cross products, I will get 12x equals 2 times 108, which is 216, and dividing both sides by 12, I get 18 eggs. So in order to make 108 muffins, she's going to need 18 eggs.